Hey everybody, it is Richard Harris here on the Surf and Sales podcast. It is the end of April 2024. As we move forward, we're excited here with my co-host and good friend Scott Leese. Scott, what's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm hanging in there, dude. I specifically wore my pray for snow hat rather than
Yeah,
surf since our esteemed guest is in Utah.
yeah.
So
I was wondering about that. Yeah, we need to get those guys back as a sponsor. You should handle that. Take care of that, please. So,
I'll get right on that.
yes, you should. You should. So, this is going to be a fun episode for a lot of reasons. Uh, this is a family member by marriage. So I don't know if you're a cousin, first once removed by in-law status.
Cousin-in-law, is that that
Right.
would probably be the most
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah. Brian Schwartz is joining us. Brian is legit, legit, like big time enterprise salesperson, sales leader, running teams, significant seven-figure deal kind of stuff in his history. So I know we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, Brian, want to tell people what you're up to these days, just to have some context of what we go into.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for having me. It's nice to see you both. And it's a little late to pray for snow. We're gonna get one more dusting before it's over, but we're ready to sort of be dry roads in spring and mountain bike and hiking weather. But I appreciate the vibes. Yeah, thanks for the intro, Richard. Like I have done a lot of big enterprise selling over the course of my career. Right now, I'm doing independent consulting, so I've been working with a lot of SaaS startups around breaking through some barriers for them. That might be enterprise barriers, that might be just scaling their business, getting their unit economics straight, their sales playbooks. But over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to be a CRO a few times. Be an SVP, built lots of sales teams, owned operations and go to market. And yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed selling across all market segments, but I think enterprise sales is oftentimes viewed as the brass ring for people in their careers, and it's kind of a different beast than everything else. And maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I enjoy the challenge of taking on those big elephants or big whales, depending on your metaphor of choice, and helping teams take them on, and individuals really climb to that next plateau in their career when they might be doing that for the first time. Maybe they've done a 50K deal, maybe they've done a six-figure deal, but when you ask somebody like, "Hey, have you ever done a seven or an eight-figure deal?" and they're like, "No," but what's that like? And you start to see their eyes get big and have fun with the possibilities of going after really big, large opportunities.
Cool. Well,
I've never been. I've,
before we jump into this, Scott, because you're going to want to hear this. Trust me. All right, Brian, please tell Scott and everybody about our very first encounter and the abuse you gave me, which you know me and you know, like Scott's already grinning. Scott's never grinned this much or this long in a long time because he loves a good Richard story. So
that's true. I do.
All right, this
please,
one, this one's pretty good. But the context you need is that in my generation, up my dad's side of the family, there are 10 of us, including my siblings and my cousins, and I have one female first cousin, and that would be Richard's wife. So when Kathy brings someone to a family occasion way back in the day when she was dating and courting, there's a thorough vetting process. Like, we're not just letting anybody marry the one girl in the family. So it happened to be a Hanukkah celebration at my house. We were doing brunches back then, and we went into the living room to light the candles. And I was setting it up, and I got all these youngins that we had at the time. This is before Richard and Kathy, of course, were together, married, and had kids. And I was moving a vase off an end table to set up the candles. And it's this big vase. It's got these two big handles and a cap on top. And the whole family's in the room, and we're getting settled. And I grabbed the vase by both handles, and I handed it to Richard, and I said, "Somebody always holds Grandma Esther's ashes when we light the candles." And he grabs this thing, and his eyes get huge. And his future father-in-law and my father were there, and they looked at me, and they busted up laughing. The whole room busted up laughing. And nobody can believe I've done this because, of course, there's nothing in the urn. Grandma Esther's buried at the cemetery. This was just something I came up with on the fly. We laughed for several minutes, and it was incredibly cruel. And other than the fact that Richard's a great sport about it, I kind of regret it. It was like so hard. I mean, Kathy's looking at me like, "Oh my God, I kind of like this guy. What the hell are you doing?"
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm done. The only thing that could make that story better would be if Richard dropped it.
Exactly. Then you're getting into like Meet the Fockers, quality
Right.
material where the ashes scatter around the room.
Yeah. So anyway, Scott, I
It was
knew
a little
you.
hazing. It was my only female cousin. You got to haze a suitor.
Yeah.
I don't even
So,
remember. Were you engaged back then? I think it was pre-engagement.
yeah, it was a few months before we had just started dating, and it was about 3 months before I proposed. So yeah, but it didn't. Scott, you know me. I have an April 1st birthday. Like this is nothing
Yeah.
for me, right?
Yeah.
But
Brian, did you know enough about Richard back then to know he was in sales and sales leadership
I
and
think I
how
knew
that?
what he did for a living. To be totally fair, I had no idea enough about his personality or his sense of humor to legitimately have known the joke would go over well and he'd be a good sport about it. Again, when you've got like one female cousin and nobody's good enough for her, do you care? Or are you just going to
Yeah,
haste the
and
guy?
sometimes salespeople just have to take a shot every now and then
You
too.
yeah,
just, it's
See
like
what
if you
happens.
can't handle the sense of humor, I don't know if I'm watching the family.
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what happens. Listen,
The,
I
the,
want to know about the difference, if there is one. I suspect that there's a big one, but I've never been a part of a company that's closed an 8-figure deal, let alone closed an 8-figure deal myself, unless we're
Yeah.
counting fundraising or acquisition, which I'm not going to count those. So how does one navigate the differences between a 7-figure deal and an 8-figure deal? Is it that much different? Is it that much more complex?
I think when you're dealing with a Fortune 50 company, it can be. And if you think about the variety of products, like what's the difference between a 7-figure deal and an 8-figure deal in terms of the business impact it's going to have on the customer? About half my career has been in the human capital management space. So very often the solutions that myself and my teams are bringing to market are things that are going to be in the hands of employees. And so the difference between at a Fortune 50 company, the difference between a 6, 7, and 8-figure deal can be thought of as like, how many people is this going to touch? And even if you were doing like IT sales and you thought about the difference between 6, 7, and 8-figure deals, like how many data centers is this going to impact? How many product lines is this going to impact? As soon as you're into the 8-figure range, in my experience, your scope is pretty big. It's going to touch a lot of people if it's an end user app, or a lot of systems or infrastructure if it's an IT solution. And so I think that the scrutiny that you fall under and that your solution and your company falls under, the number of hurdles you have to jump through, the number of inspections and sign-offs that have to take place is just of an order of magnitude different than if you're just getting a foot in the door deal. To give you an example, and these are true stories from when I've led teams that have sold to like Microsoft or Amazon. You don't earn the right to do a company-wide deal at Microsoft or Amazon. You have to start in the divisions, and really selling to those companies is like selling to 25 different companies that are under one umbrella. And so the metaphor I'll use with salespeople is you're trying to get your foot in the door at a lot of different organizations within Microsoft. Go start brush fires. Like we want brush fires in forms of lots of different ops, or in terms of actual small contracts. At Microsoft, for example, until you're at multiple millions of dollars in ARR, corporate procurement that might help you do an enterprise-wide deal won't even talk to you. It's not worth their time or their energy. So you've got to actually start with the lower sales to get to the big sales. When we did a deal that was worth $20 million at a Fortune 50 company, it took 2 years. It was a deal I started as an IC, and then I was leading that team, and my backfill took it over, and he knew 200 people at that Fortune 50 company when the deal closed. Like you just rattle a name and he knows where they are. He knows their boss. He knows their kids. He knows their dog's name. Like that's an order of magnitude different than if you're an SMB sales and you only need to know 1 or 2 people to get a deal done. So I don't know if that helps give you some context.
It does. That's super helpful. And it as you were talking, I was thinking about how virtually impossible it would be to do a deal like that that's touching so many different people and so many different departments. You can't do a deal like that by yourself.
Oh, absolutely not.
This is where the team sport aspect comes into play in order to get a deal of this size done, correct?
Absolutely. And I, the metaphor we tend to use a lot there, and it's a cliche, but it's really appropriate, is that the AE on that team is the quarterback of the team trying to move the ball downfield. And it's super important that that person embraces a team mindset and understands that they get to call the plays. And that might be you're calling a play for your VP or your CRO. That might mean you're calling a play for your CEO. And so the internal selling and briefing and knowledge that has to happen can exceed the external selling in some days and some weeks, where you're marshaling all your resources. And some reps will sometimes hit a brick wall. You want to go do a $20 million deal, you're going to hear no a lot. You're going to hit a lot of brick wall. The first question you want to ask yourself is, do I have to solve that problem? And the expression I bring to reps often is like, your job is to make sure the problem gets solved. And that's different than assuming you have to solve every problem yourself. You can't solve for every problem yourself in a $20 million deal. You're going to need to marshal your resources. And oftentimes I'll meet reps that they've never done that before. You also have to have the right leadership team. If your CEO doesn't want to be involved in those deals, that can be a barrier. And not all CEOs are selling CEOs.
What is your advice to someone who is trying to figure this out, right? They've done enterprise sales of 5-6 figure deals. They haven't gotten to 7. Maybe they haven't gotten to 8. What's the advice to help them understand? And maybe they already do. When you say it's not your job to solve the problem, to fix it, but it's your job to help, navigate it. What are you telling them the kind of things they have to do? What does the sales rep have to sort of give up control of to try and get done? And how do they do that?
Yeah. The first thing they have to give up control of is every single interaction that takes place won't be under their control. So you might brief.
You have to relinquish their control freakness.
Oh man, you gotta, the way to manage the OCD, and I feel like most great enterprise salespeople have a super healthy amount of OCD. Like that's actually somewhat their superpower, is they worry about the details, they worry about the little things. You're not going to be in the room if your CEO is meeting with their CEO for a one-on-one, which can be a critical part of a very large deal. So your power lies in briefing, educating, prepping. It's definitely measure twice, cut once on every single interaction. So your ability to sell to your internal team and coordinate, and just like we talk about profiling, the customers and the personalities and personas of the customer, you have to figure that out with your internal team. You have to know when somebody is a great fit to go lead a meeting, or somebody might be, maybe their strengths are better suited to a different kind of account or a different customer, and you want to tap them out for a different resource. We had, I had a deal one time where the head of customer success just was a very different personality type than what we needed for a very specific customer. And I went to the CRO and I said, what do you think about maybe making a change and having one of their key lieutenants take the customer meeting? And he understood it was delicate, it was political, but at the end of the day, whether I'm leading a team or whether I'm leading a deal, my job is to make the strongest recommendations for who needs to be involved in every interaction. And if that's not politically correct, then I bring that to management and I make my case and we make a decision as to what the right play is. And that's the hardest part, is you're going to have to recommend things that might be unpopular, might be unorthodox. The company may never have done or jumped through those hurdles before, but if it's the right play, then make your case, brief your leadership, advocate for what you feel is the best solution, and then bring an open mindset, because your senior leaders are going to want to put their fingerprints on your strategy.
I'm sitting here going, what is the appropriate way to tell Brian,
yes,
you can't run this meeting, I need Richard to run this meeting? Because that's what I heard you say. This person might not be the right person to run this meeting for these reasons. How do you tactfully explain that to somebody and then manage the aftermath of that conversation? That can't be an easy conversation. That's what I'm thinking.
Once you've done it a few times and built up your muscles and your mindset around what it takes to do that, it does absolutely get easier. I think your biggest power with those kinds of advocacy conversations, when you're advocating for a specific approach or a specific person to be involved, is the voice of the customer and the key people who are going to be in that customer interaction. And so you're saying, look, this key executive stakeholder is XYZ, they hold this position, here's their background. I feel like they would resonate best with this individual on our team. So let's have this individual on our team, regardless of rank, be in that meeting, leading that meeting, because that's who the customer best wants to hear from. I one time sold to a very valuable, from a market cap perspective, security company. And it was a multi-million-dollar deal. And the customer, back in the days where we did a lot more on-site meetings, convinced the customer to come into our corporate HQ for a briefing. And I had a specific person in mind for who we wanted to really win over the customer. And it was not a salesperson or an executive. It was from our customer success team. And they were with us all day. They were with us for 8 hours. And at lunchtime, I went to go sit next to the key customer executive at the lunch, at the restaurant we were sitting at. And she said, look, I've met you a bunch of times. Can I actually sit next to this person? And it was the person from our customer success team that we had identified might be a phenomenal relationship fit for the customer. And I was like, absolutely. I gave them my chair. I went to the far end of the table. I let them sit next to each other, and it was an amazing combination. It helped us win the deal. If you'd asked me back in the day, like, hey, when did you know you were winning your deal? I was like, I knew when I was winning the deal when the customer asked me not to sit next to her so she could sit next to the customer success lead. So that was when I'm like, okay, now we're in the kill zone. Now we're in the red zone. Now we're on the 5-yard line.
I love that. That's a great example.
So I got a question. I heard you say, like, and I would assume this is one of many meetings. So I have two questions. So one, you can do some math in your head. For a large 7 or 8 figure deal, how many people hours do you think it takes? But you can think about that. What do you do in an 8-hour all day sales meeting? Like, I can't even fathom. I can barely pay attention for an hour at a time, much less 8 hours with a customer. Like, what is that? Is it security stuff? Is it a demo? Is it a deeper dive demo with different people? Like,
it's an endurance contest.
Yeah. What is this? What do you do?
You never trained for a marathon, Richard?
Of course not. You know me.
It's the best way to think about it is it's a series of stories. You're going to break it up into 7 or 8 no more than 1 hour sessions. You're going to confirm that agenda with the customer. This was a very formal RFP process. The customer was down to 2 finalists. We were the underdog in terms of, our number one competitor was 10x our size and value and had references out the wazoo. But they got a vibe that we might be the younger, innovative company to work with. And the best way to handle the remaining objections was to, the expression we would use back in the day is press the flesh. Why don't you come meet us? Why don't you come look us in the eye? You don't believe that the sales team and the CEO are really going to be able to, that the company's going to live up to the promises they've made, then come meet the company. And so we broke it up into a series of 6 or 7 1-hour sessions with a nice, healthy lunch break in between. So yeah, it's like, here's customer success with your implementation methodology and how we make companies like you successful. Yes, IT and InfoSec and all the security and the dotted I's and the cross T's. Here's your product lead talking about your roadmap and your future pipeline and what's going to come and why you want to believe in our vision and how we're investing in the product, which was a nice contrast to our competitor who was more in maintenance mode and wasn't really innovative. So yeah, you build out that sequence and then you prep the hell out of everybody, because again, your number one fear is that not everybody you're asking to be involved in that meeting may have customer facing pre-sales experience, right? We're not in contract yet. So you're still selling. You're trying to be, very open and honest and advocating and answer the tough questions, but you're still in sales mode. So you want to try to map out, like here are the landmines, here are the things we might want to be delicate on, if not totally avoid. Like, don't go there. We have the list of topics, like, don't go here unless you're asked a question that takes you here, because this is going to be a rat hole. And then the whole day you have to be flexible. I've done this multiple times in my career, and one of the most interesting was when we took the lunch break and the customer came over, the key person of the customer came over and said, can we totally blow up the afternoon agenda? Here's what we'd like to do. And your only answer can be, okay, give me 5 minutes to figure this out. Yes, in some way, shape, or form, we're obviously going to adopt the second half of the day to whatever you want. But that was like, my team didn't eat lunch. My team rebuilt the whole afternoon agenda and figured out how we were going to adjust to the curveball the customer gave us. And we did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are exciting times, great times, but they're a hell of a lot of work. But do you want to go
Okay,
secure a
okay.
company-wide multi-million-dollar deal? That's what you got to do.
Let me see if I can push back on something.
Sure, please.
Because you just said those are exciting times, which I can understand, I guess. But my thing is, I feel like I feel like I'm built in such a way that I need to go home every day feeling like I either won or lost something. Preferably winning, of course, but like I want to leave it all on the line. And I took an L or I took a W that day. And most big kind of enterprise sellers like you're not closing deals like every day. You're closing a couple a year, maybe, right? And I mentally struggle with the patience required and really only having the opportunity to feel like I won a half dozen times a year, right? So how do you take somebody, if it's even possible, how do you take somebody like me and reprogram this seller to view small victories along the way, not just the like signing day kind of a close? Because I can't be the only one who feels this way. But maybe I'm just the type of person that you'd be like, well, fuck that guy. I'm never hiring him. He's not built for this. So talk to me a little bit about that.
There's absolutely an element of enterprise selling that not everybody is built for. I would say most people are not built for it. And what conflates the problem if you're a leader trying to hire people with true enterprise selling experience is that lots of companies play games with titles and segments. Sometimes I'm an enterprise seller. I was at this company for a few years doing enterprise. And then you actually look at their definition of enterprise. You're like, dude, that's larger mid-market or small enterprise at best. You're not talking about companies that are FANG companies or true large enterprises. I think the mental model adjustment, which is how I'm interpreting your question, Scott, is that and we can use the soccer example. Like, look, you're telling me your satisfaction is putting the ball in the back of the net. And what I would reframe or help that salesperson understand is that long before you're in a position to put the ball in the back of the net, it's all about passing and moving the ball downfield. And so you take your wins as you progress. You take your wins in like, we got the executive briefing between their senior leader and our CEO. That's a win. That takes a lot of time and energy and effort to even get far enough in your deal where you get that executive briefing. We survived, and I use that word, we survived the InfoSec review with the Fortune 50 company, because until your company has done that before with a Fortune 50 company, it's almost a guarantee they're going to poke and prod at your stack in ways you've never been poked and prodded before. So all of those incremental steps to move downfield, those are wins. You have to take those as wins. You have to recognize that not everybody who was considered by this company, not every vendor, not every salesperson survived that process.
Yeah, they didn't
so you take your incremental step. And you smile and you go home and pour your favorite beverage that day because you know you're one step closer, but it's probably 100-step journey.
So this is the part you don't know about Scott. To motivate Scott, all you have to do is to say, Scott, I don't think you're capable of closing 7 and 8 figure deals. And you throw that down on Scott. And I'm sure, Brian, you sort of find different ways to coach people. Is like, that's who you find who has the grit. Right? Like that's the person who gets it. And, again, Scott and I grew up, Scott more than me, but grew up in the sort of earlier stage SaaS world where, SaaS experience required. So we sort of got stuck in these smaller roles, smaller companies, and people just wouldn't necessarily take the chance to get us into those roles, which is kind of what I want to ask about for people listening. But yeah, you just tell Scott he can't do something and then he'll do it. Like that's generally his modus operandi.
Yeah, I try to avoid telling people what they can't do. I never tell my wife what you can't do, but it's more of in order to be successful at this level, here are the changes you might have to make in how you approach your business, how you approach your customers, how you sell internally versus externally. Part of our job as leaders is to promote talent through the farm leagues to get to the next level. Right. I had a SMB rep at a company one time, and he was not on track to hit his numbers when I first came into the organization. He's doing, 10 to 12K average deals on an ARR basis with a $750 or $900,000 quota. And I'm like, dude, you're not getting enough inbound, and you can't call into enough outbound to hit your number this year at this low ASP. And I said, I'm just curious, like, what does a $50,000 deal feel like to you? And he said, I don't know what you're smoking, but I want some, because like we don't do those in this division. Like you're crazy to even ask me about that. I said, okay, perfect. This is our goal for the year. We're going to get you to your first 50K deal. Pick 2 or 3 deals that you think aren't possible. I'll personally partner with you on them, and let's go make it happen. And he got to a 50K deal mid-year, and he closed a 6-figure deal before the year was out. And at the awards banquet, he actually reminded me while he was like accepting his award, like, I thought Brian was absolutely fucking crazy. And like, then we figured out how to do it. And he's like, once you've done the 50K deal or the 6-figure deal, you can't go back to doing 10K deals. Like, you don't want that nickel and dime stuff. It doesn't feel good.
That's a tough part. I've run into situations many times in my career where people were coming from enterprise and needed work, really, and they're suddenly interviewing for mid-market deals or mid-market jobs or even SMB jobs. And it's like, I don't think so. How do you come down the ladder in terms of price point and still be excited about the deal? I've never found those types of candidates to work out. But on the flip side, have you seen people who come from more transactional SMB mid-market kind of deals make the leap? Or is it really people who just like sort of started and always stayed and played in enterprise who become the most successful?
Oh no, I've seen people make the leap as long as they bring an open mindset, as long as they are open to feedback and coaching. And one of the personal mantras I live by when I'm leading organizations is I'll never ask somebody to do anything I won't do myself. And when I'm asking them to do really hard stuff for their very first time, I'll always try to give them the option to say, like, look, here's the suggested play. We talk about the play we want to run. And I'm like, are you comfortable with this? And it helps if I've been working with them for a long enough time where they know they have the headspace to say no to me. No, I'm not comfortable with that. Okay, great. I'd rather you tell me you're not comfortable with something that's new and hard. Okay, so would you like me to help you run that play? Or would you like our CEO to send that message to the key stakeholder? Like, again, it sort of ties back into that team sport. Like, you're the quarterback. That doesn't mean you have to take the ball and run through to get the 3-yard gain and get your body pummeled. It might mean you get to choose to hand the ball off. So what I'll try to do, though, is like, if we're going to run that play and I'm running it or someone else is running it for the first time, it's like, look, let's show you how to do this. Let's help you get more comfortable doing something that's hard and new. And then the next time it comes up, I'll ask them the same question. Well, you saw how we did that last time. You want to take a run at it? And then, of course, as a leader, you're making choices of like which things you can let them run at on their own, which they might screw up. And, it's like, hey, if that's something that if you screw up, I know I can recover it, then I'm going to let you run and screw it up all you want, or run and build that personal motivation of having that individual success, trying something new. If it's something too critical for error, we might decide I'm doing it, a senior executive's doing it, and remove you from the stress of like, hey, that actually, we have to have that thing work. And it's new to you, and this isn't the right one for you to get bloodied on.
I have a different question. As AI comes into play, I firmly believe that the safest place in sales is going to be enterprise, right? That being said, how does a rep self-educate enough to keep making that move up market? Because as you get bigger and you go after enterprise reps, right, everybody wants someone who's done 7- and 8-figure deals, but at some point, there's just not enough people in the well, right? And as people start to retire and all those kind of things in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to change even more. What advice do you give to the rep who's been doing? I mean, obviously, you go from SMB to mid market, but then mid market to that 100K deal, which companies love to call enterprise, right? But then that 100K to 7-figure. What do people need to do to take control of their own career so they can be seen in that light as a potential enterprise rep?
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is, it's very, very common for me. And by the way, I agree with your hypothesis. I think that the current generation of enterprise, big enterprise sellers is slowly either turning gray or losing their hair altogether, and eventually they'll retire, and that's going to be an opportunity for folks to step up and step in. So the question I think I hear you ask is like, how am I preparing for that opportunity? How do I get to set myself up for success? I think the first thing to say is like, it's very, very common for folks earlier in their careers, you know, maybe they're SMB, maybe they're in market, to always, you know, raise their hand and say, I want to level up. I want to move up to this team. I want to move up to that team. Before you just say, I want to level up, be prepared to prove what you've done to earn it, or what you've done to build your skill set that shows you're ready for it. So are you shadowing more senior reps on your team? Are you being mentored by a VP? Are you setting yourself up to learn and be coached and be educated on the new motions before you just get thrown into the role? Because the silliest thing you can do is just be thrown into the role with expecting it's just going to be the same thing you're doing now, but more commission checks. It's not. It's going to be different. It's always going to be different. So how far can you go understanding how it's going to be different, and understanding how that next level of play, like, you know, you don't just go start in the Premier League. You got to work your way up to being, you know, invited to join one of those teams. So educating, mentoring, reading, really understanding. And then there's some things that just are table stakes. Are you supremely expert at an A player example of someone who keeps Salesforce up to date, who keeps your leadership informed? Do you have to always blow out your numbers? It helps, but if you're not always going to blow out your numbers, at least show that your forecast is always accurate. Things like that. Can you prospect into higher senior levels, or are you still stuck below the power line with lower level folks? So learning that next level playbook and showing how you've got the traits to execute at that level, and then you're just inviting somebody to give you the chance.
I think my favorite quote, wait, hold on, Richard. I think my favorite quote of this whole episode so far is, if you're not going to blow out your number, at least have an accurate forecast. This is my favorite.
You like
quote.
that?
That's my favorite quote so far.
I mean, look, because if you don't blow out your number and you don't have an accurate forecast, at some point as a senior leader who, like, I've entrusted you to run this franchise within our business, and what you're telling me is you don't know what the fuck's going on with your own book of business.
Right. Exactly.
But you've been here a year and now you want a promotion.
so that's
sorry, like that math doesn't work for a leader.
I want to move into leadership.
Right. So is it, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. To move your career into an enterprise role, do you, let's say you're 23, 24, coming out of college, right? You're getting your first job, you're SMB, and, you know, in a year you move up into mid-market, right? Is your only way to get to enterprise is to continually getting promoted within your own company? Because someone to be hired externally, if you don't have the enterprise experience, they're not going to hire you. Like, what does that path look like in your opinion? And granted, you could find a Brian Schwartz, right? And all of a sudden, like, Brian sees the potential. He's done this before. He knows how to move someone along. He knows that kind of stuff, and you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think there's as many Brian Schwartz out there as they might think they are.
I think you're going to have proof of life around your ability to sell into an enterprise motion before you just switch companies and get an enterprise job. Now, that proof of life might be you're getting promoted internally, or you know, have I promoted people into enterprise roles when I'm at a new organization and they're not currently part of the organization? Yes, but it was people I'd worked with before. So I knew I had a belief in them that they were ready for that next level. I would have promoted them if I was still at their organization, or I'm inviting them to join me and step up into a higher level role. The other thing, and this kind of goes back to Scott's, us picking on Scott a little bit about, like, you know, be careful what you wish for. It can be more feast or famine. There might be quarters with little to no commission check, followed by a blowout quarter or end of year when you finally land the big, huge deal. So you have to ask yourself if your lifestyle, if your need for income is going to be commensurate with the Richter scale of what an enterprise rep's commission plan and payouts can look like. That kind of goes back to the, like, do you really want this? If you like the steady Eddie income checks that come with, you know, crushing it in SMB or mid-market sales, and you get that commission check every month or every quarter, you may not want to chase the feast or famine world of enterprise.
I got one more question. as an enterprise rep, as an IC, what was your biggest commission check?
Oh, I don't like answering questions about
I
my
know, but
personal
that's
income.
consider it my response to being forced to hold Aunt Esther,
Your
Grandma
grandma Esther,
Esther.
yeah. That's fair. What I'll, as a good salesperson reserves the right to do, I can reframe your question and tell you that to me, the most interesting milestones in my personal career. By the way, my children have asked me that question. I don't answer it either, because then I know they'll just ask me for more money. I think the most interesting times when you start to get into larger commission checks and big deals is when you get a commission check that's bigger than the first year's salary you had out of college. That's a wow moment. When you have a multi six-figure tax bill,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's a moment. And you start to look back, you're like, I'm holding a check or looking at a check virtually. It's more money than I made in an entire year when I got out of school, when I thought, that was a lot of money, and it's not. And you redefine that. When you realize you're paying the government ridiculous amounts of money in taxes, to which, a wise mentor of mine says, that's just the cost of doing business. Suck it up, write the check, and move on with your day. Those are great moments as well. But yeah, 6-figure commission checks are what come from 7 or 8-figure deals. But the best I ever did was actually as a leader, which is really hard to do. That's by the way, another footnote that I'm sure Scott and Richard, you'll both resonate with. Like, if you want to make the most money in sales, don't go into leadership. Be the top IC over and over and over again. But I had a team that did $30 million against a 10 million quota because we landed a monster 8-figure deal. After we'd already hit our 10 million and we're done for the year, we then added another 20 million. And that was a great year. That was a great payout.
Is that a 7-figure? Have you had a 7-figure commission check or bonus?
I'm going to stand with the answers I've given you.
Yes, that's an answer. Scott, could you imagine?
Your children are about to be college age or wanting to buy homes, and they'll listen to this and be like, Dad, now you just need to give me more money.
Scott and I are like, we tell them a lot about what we make, and it's sort of like, well, if you want that lifestyle, you got to go get that job. You got to. They
don't remember the years where it was famine, and like my wife and I, we've been very fortunate. We've done very well, but like there were years earlier on when the kids were really little where the money was terrible, and it was like, well, I guess I'm going to mow my own lawn or clean my own toilets because I don't want to spend the money to hire people in to do that. They were too little to remember that.
Yeah. So well, that's why we have kids, so they can clean the toilet. But so anyway, all right. So Brian, I could go on for hours. I know there was a topic you wanted to talk about. We don't have time today, but was about learning how to negotiate these big deals. Right, like nobody.
Yeah, maybe we, if you guys like this, and I'm fortunate enough to come back, we can talk about that. I think that's its own subset of selling big enterprises. Yeah. How do you deal with procurement? How do you negotiate? How do you even stupid little detailed oriented things, like a lot of very, very large companies will use procurement systems like Ariba, which is part of SAP. Even clicking in to log in and accept the terms of the RFP. They try to pre-obligate you to deal terms and 90-day payments and term for convenience and all this nonsense that no salesperson ever has the authority to say yes to. But in theory, you're saying yes by just clicking in to get access to the RFP. There's techniques to work around all of that, and the best sellers learn how to do that. And I sort of think of it as the art of saying no without saying no. Basically, I'm not going to accept all those business terms. So how do I tell you what I am going to accept without pissing off your procurement guy on the very first day of the RFP?
Yeah, I would love to have that conversation. So we just don't have time today. That being said, we always turn it over to you. Any questions you'd like to ask us? Although, I wonder if you have any question that we would be smart enough to answer.
Look, it was funny because Scott embargoed AI, but I'm going to ask about it anyway because you brought it up, Richard, which is like, so where do you guys have been in the industry a long time? I've been in the industry a long time. Like, is our industry going to go away, or what part of it's going to be left in 5 to 10 years for the next generation who says, I want a career in software sales, I want a career in enterprise sales? What's going to be left? What do you think is going to be left?
I kind of answered it. Scott, you want to go first?
Well, the most interesting part to me is the number of years. So you said 5 to 10 years. So I don't expect the entire field to go away in 5 to 10 years. I do expect the entire field to go away at some point in time. I do. I have a very dystopian outlook on some of this stuff. It's
Is there a
me.
gas mask and a prep kit under your
Scott,
desk?
Scott is Rick Grimes from Walking Dead, 100%.
Hey,
But he will always find a way to survive. But
yeah, I'll make it to season 12.
Right.
Look, the thing that I think about is, you know, we've got these tools that are sort of doubling in capability and capacity every 6 months, which is going to accelerate, but let's just stick with 6 months. Okay, so like 7 years from now, that's like 256 times more powerful than they are right now, present day. Okay. You trying to tell me that some of these tasks and jobs that we're doing won't be replaced by a AI digital version of us? You don't think that an AI will understand emotion and sentiment and tonality and all these kinds? I personally do. So I think, you know, like most people, the most menial kind of admin low level tasks will go away first, and those roles will go away. But I don't think it's going to be required to I don't think that every salesperson and sales leader is going to be safe indefinitely. I don't believe that. I don't know how to put a number around it, but I don't believe that it will be safe forever. And Richard loves to say humans want to buy from humans. They love to buy from humans. No, we do, because we're old. My kids don't want to buy from other humans. My kids don't want to talk to other human beings. They don't engage and interact with the world like that. That is a nightmare for them.
Do you text them to come to dinner, or do you shout through the house?
I shout through the house, because if I texted them, they don't even reply to me.
Yes.
They don't text. They'll be like, I didn't see your text message. I'm like, what? I fucking gave you a phone so I could communicate with you. You don't talk on the phone. You don't pick up the phone. You don't talk on the phone. Fine. Neither do I. I text you. You don't even reply to me. What am I supposed to do? And this is what they say. Well, you could Snapchat me.
Yeah, I was gonna say they want you to snap them.
Well, this is my point though. Like, they don't engage with the world the way we did. They will not be feeling, oh, I can't make this 7-figure purchase unless I talk to somebody. Whether that purchase is software or property or whatever, I don't believe that will be a necessity.
That's about a 20-year cycle, right? Because our kids are mid-teens, right?
10 to 20 years.
10 to, yeah. So
well, I'm hoping to be done long before then. So it's
you and me
I
both.
don't give a shit.
That's my philosophy. That is exactly what everybody our age and experience level should be thinking.
I
gotta be done before that happens.
Expired. Yeah, you need a GTFO before your usefulness is terminated.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you for you're an easy guest because you can just keep talking and talking forever. But thank you for coming and sharing all this with us. And I do want to have you back to do the enterprise.
I'm glad Scott caught the backhanded compliment there, because that's how but Richard told me that forever.
Definitely
that's how
that.
we roll. Like, I have to interrupt Brian in personal comment. I'm like, Brian, you're talking too much.
This was a pleasure.
This was a pleasure because I have to interrupt Richard all the time for doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, next time maybe we just do this without Richard then.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. So, but Brian, how can people get a hold of you? The name of my consulting business is Altitude Consulting Group. It's just a placeholder website, but Brian at Altitude CG is my email, or look me up on LinkedIn, and you can drop me an email or send me an email. And always happy to talk to folks who are looking for help or have hit brick walls, either at the leadership level where they're struggling with some things that maybe they haven't done before and they want some advice. I'm doing fractional leadership work right now. And so if you're a company that might be looking to bring in a fractional or interim sales leader to fix some things up or help you conquer some hurdles, reach out to me and I'm happy to have a conversation. All right. Scott just texted me and said, cut that last part because he's a competitor of mine. So
that's not true. He's lying.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. Good to see you,
Scott's we already know Scott's only going to help you if you're SMB. So
also not true.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Also not true.
but
Listen, at this point, I must be part of the family because the shit talking has started coming my way.
yes, you are. You are. You are. So
Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
thanks,
Brian.
Brian.
Take care.